As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
Son of a bitch. He stole my life.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Welcome back to the Shot by Shot podcast, where today we're talking Ryan Coogler's fifth feature film, Sinners, which, despite Coogler himself really making a couple of really great films throughout the last decade, this has really drastically beat my expectations for what I expected from a Ryan Coogler vampire movie, which, although he's really proven himself to be a skilled filmmaker from his debut with Fruitvale Station, and he's worked in a couple of franchise films since over the 2010s, but he himself has said that that work up until now has really been in service of stories outside himself, and I feel like this is the first one where really his voice really fully shines through, compared to the other films. But Sinners is the first film that I think you really feel that it's a full representation of both his skill, but really his interests in film combined into kind of one package, where you can really see that it's like his singular vision. And I think just the fact that it was a vampire movie made by Ryan Coogler got me enticed instantly. I love vampire movies, and this definitely delivers on being an incredibly fun time. But I think it's also a multi-layered and emotional story that is about religion, race, music, the way art can bring people and cultures together. I think there's so many layers and stuff to break down about this film. Sinners is part period piece, part gangster film, part musical, part horror vampire flick, of course, but it's all giving each piece of the puzzle really its own fleshed out elements, and I loved it so much. I think it's easily the best film of this year. It's been a weak start to 2025, but I think it's going to take a lot to really knock this from the top of my rankings when it comes to the end of the year. But yeah, I loved it. What did you think about Sinners?
I think Soderbergh's duo at the top has finally been toppled. It's took till the end of April, but it's happened, which I'm happy about because he was single-handedly carrying the year. I don't really watch trailers at home intentionally. I'd seen the first trailer for this, so obviously I knew it was about vampires, but unlike the second trailer, which is horrendous, I watched it after I'd seen the film. It spoils like every plot point. I didn't have many expectations because I'm not as into vampires as you two. I do like them, but I definitely prefer the more modern setting for vampires than the gothic one. My favorite vampire film up until seeing this was From Dusk Till Dawn, and this is like an elevated From Dusk Till Dawn. Coogler even states that it's like his direct influence on this film because at points this really feels like a Tarantino and Rodriguez film, but with his own twist on it. Yeah, I think he just elevates himself completely from a very solid studio franchise director to a real auteur who hopefully, I know he's been talking about going back to doing with Black Panther, which I think is like fair enough if he wants to finish that storyline. But I really hope he doesn't keep falling back on franchise films because this is such a good original film, and the fact it's making bank. I'm not sure what the budget was, but I think it's going to surpass 100 million probably by the end.
I think it was like 90 million the budget.
Yeah, so I think it's at like 75 right now. I think I read it. It's breaking like records for the decade of horror films, like original horror films. So yeah, it's really good for cinema. It's a great film. Definitely my favorite vampire film, I think, and my favorite release of the year so far.
Favorite vampire film? Interesting. Yeah, it doesn't still doesn't hold anything on Bram Stoker's Dracula, but that's okay. But no, still an incredible film, and just one of those kind of rare films that is kind of worth every bit of praise that it's getting from everybody. Obviously, it's a film partially shot on IMAX 70mm, which is pretty kind of rare nowadays. The last film to be shot that way was Oppenheimer, and the next film to be shot that way is The Odyssey. So it's a rare occurrence for a film to be shot, and it's the first time that there's been this mixture of the Ultra Panavision 70mm and the IMAX 70mm, which kind of leads us into the most extreme aspect ratio change you've probably ever seen, and I'm the only person here who had a chance and opportunity to see it in that full 1.43 um, aspect ratio, which is truly incredible. And I like Kugler as a filmmaker, but this is just by and large his best film, without a doubt. And it really feels like he's spreading his wings after coming off the MCU. And yeah, and it's lovely to see, honestly. And the people are saying, oh, like he's proven himself as a filmmaker. Marvel should take him back. No, please don't go back. Please don't go back. I don't want you to. Please. This film has proved exactly why you shouldn't go
Mhm.
back. And then I also see people are saying oh, I want a sequel for this and a prequel for that. Like franchise brain is like the most rotted thing. People just want sequels and prequels to every single character. Like, please just go away. This does not need any sequel or prequel whatsoever. Please just shut up. But yeah, this is an incredible experience for itself, and just one of those films that doesn't just use IMAX for spectacle and size. It really, really has a story to tell, and is very much impactful.
I think you're watching a different film if you don't see it in IMAX. And I rarely make the effort to go to IMAX films, but since Kugler was campaigning so hard to see it in IMAX, I just had to do it. It's definitely worth the extra money you pay. And certain scenes towards the end, where like there's a battle about to begin and the aspect ratio changes, it's like it actually gets you out that you see it's such. I went and saw Warfare earlier on the like crappy little loading screen, and like in comparison from a few days ago, I was just so depressing seeing like a tiny little screen compared to Sinners in IMAX. Definitely my favorite like cinema experience in a couple of years.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely, definitely up there. But it's funny you talking about IMAX in that way, and yeah, that was just like the standard IMAX.
Yeah, so I can't imagine seeing it in the like aspect ratio you saw it in.
Mm.
Yeah, IMAX can be used so effectively sometimes. Like Joker last year, not the greatest film, not the greatest filmmaker, but like when you go from like a boring courtroom drama scene to like a musical scene and it like cuts to the IMAX aspect ratio, it's effective even when it's not Ryan Coogler doing it. And when somebody of his capabilities gets his hands on it, you have like some of the best scenes of the decade. Um, like there's the opening scene, the full IMAX aspect ratio. Like there's all the musical scenes pretty much. That like fight scene that you're talking about it just gets you so excited when you see it like slowly switching.
Yeah, it really it makes like it just feels like a spectacle. I think
Mhm.
that scene, certain times film can like literally take your breath away. That scene and the dance scene, literally everyone's talking about. I mean, it is incredible. The spirit dance scene. That was like out of body experience watching that. Similar to like for me, like the Godzilla attack scene in -1, or like the party scene in Babylon. It's like I think every year has some films that have moments like that, and this as a couple where you just feel like in awe of what you see, and that's one of the best like continuous shots I've ever seen of the spirit dance scene. It just keeps escalating in ridiculousness, but it just looks so good.
Spoiler warning, by the way, if you hadn't already
Yeah,
been to see Sinners, please do. It's truly worth everybody's time. Yeah, I think um, with um, these kind of films, it's clearly very well researched, and Kugler and team did their time. The landscape and the setting in the Mississippi Delta in the 30s. There's this communities of Chinese immigrants, black communities, and we see a small sequence of Native Americans as well. And it's all there, and like I know it's like a cheap thing to say that it's like that was there and that happened, but there's so much. There's so many ideas going on in Kugler's images, and it's overflowing to a point where I'm like, yeah, this is great that there's so much happening on screen, but at the same time, there's characterization with each individual is crazy. Like I'm feeling things for every character in all these moments. Like this character is not just a waste of story or a waste of space. It's like each character has something that kind of ties them into this kind of whole film. And yeah, it's crazy, and the performances are fantastic. Especially Delroy Lindo and Miles Catton. I thought were my favorite performances. It's a film that doesn't really try and reinvent the vampire genre. It's kind of got its, the usual stake through the heart, garlic, etc. But it just it rejuvenates it instead, and I think that's what he's so much more focused on. And it feels very cathartic and satisfying watching all these kind of dominoes topple as we kind of get to the end of the film. And yeah, and it's full to the brim, and it's like the perfect post MCU film, like a franchise that shackles your kind of artistic intentions, and this is just the exact opposite of that. It's got so much on there. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I like Miles Caton and Daryl Linda, like you said. I think Haley Steinfeld, I saw people were saying it's like one of the most, when spoilers, when she becomes a vampire, it's one of the like most promiscuous like performances in a while. She turns like super like sadistic but horny at the same time. She's got a really good performance before that, but yeah, she's really good to watch. Obviously, Michael B. Jordan playing twins is never an easy task, but you definitely see them as two separate characters. But you also really feel the connection they have, um, and that's why I think that little post-credit scene is so fulfilling. Because post-credit scenes don't have a very good reputation, especially amongst studio films like the Marvel films and DC films. But this one is the first one in a while where I felt it was a really satisfying conclusion to both Miles Caton's characters and the vampires. And Jack O'Connell as well as Remick, also like a really good villain performance. Um, he's interesting because he's got obviously very Irish ties and he's singing Irish music, and there's like a play on racism in another regard. I think he makes a comment on how like he was banished and driven out by the English, but his idea of like assimilation is like symbolized by vampirism. So that's quite an interesting take they have on the like vampire as a supernatural being. Um, but yeah, I don't think there's a bad performance in here, and it's definitely going to make the careers of some of the actors.
Yeah, I think the element of having Jack O'Connell in it Irish is like so interesting and adds like so many layers to like that vampire section of the film. I mean, just him being Irish like instantly starts you gets you thinking about just how like the contrast between the two cultures that have like experienced their own kind of prosecution, and that kind of link between them. But I think it's he mentions the Christians took his father's land is what it is, which I think dates him to be like over 1,000 years old, like to fifth or seventh century. Um, which that I think, I mean, the layers that he has in this film that like makes you want to go and like research like the characters and the details that he's put into them. I think is what makes so many elements of this so great. Like it's not just like spoon fed to you. Like you have to go and like I when I got out of this, I researched like when the Christians like took his land or like the beginnings of the Mississippi Delta, and just like the way he makes that just feel like a living and breathing kind of location before he takes you into this genre film. I think he's done so well. You mentioned like how like they have like the Asian families like living in within the Mississippi Delta, and I think that scene where the Chow family who owns, like the store, I think it's Stack is in there trying to get a board and some food for their for the night that they're setting up. And there's a oneer where she follows the child across the street to the other store. Um and I didn't even like clock this the first time I watched it, but like the other side of the town is like just completely like white people shopping. So they have like a white store and a black store. And it was like the Asian families would be like them between to both of them where they'd sell to both different races. I think that was such a like interesting feature to it, but it wasn't really like thrown in your face. there's really just so many layers to everything he's doing in this movie, and it makes it feel so real.
Yeah, with this kind of racial divide, I think it's so easy just to kind of have the kind of the white and the black communities just stand as kind of these juxtapositions between at the times and the exploitation and have it nothing more. But Kugler kind of goes even further than that and not just have it as this kind of face value concept and idea. Like I mentioned in my review that there's a lot of kind of unknowns in this. Like his kind of definition of evil and the kind of metaphor of vampires is never really defined. We kind of get that kind of narration in the beginning. It's like, of these people called the evil this, or along the Irish and African Americans and things like that. And it is kind of hopping between these two, three even. I think I can't remember, there's a third. I think it might have been I can't remember anyway. But yeah, he never really assigns anything to this, and I think it works well with how distinctly kind of disorderly the film is, and it kind of pins more on us as audiences who are kind of challenged to like, oh, what does this mean this, or does this mean this, and he's kind of keeping it going in a way that never really finds any closure. But no, I think Jack O'Connell's character Remic's really interesting because I think the ending of the film is kind of the antithesis to kind of his conclusion in a way, because we see Sammy rejecting his father's kind of religion and prayers and like art as this form of sin, and as he kind of drives off. And I honestly think that the post credits, the first mid credit scene, is not actually necessary to the film. That the cut to the first credits, really, like he's driving off and he puts like the guitar on his heart, and it like very quickly cuts to him in 1983, is fantastic and incredible. I honestly think that the mid-credit scene is a tiny bit spoon-fed in a sense, and it's a nice moment. The kind of whole film sort of revolves around that kind of quote, for a few hours before the sun went down, we were truly free, and it's an incredible shot. That's been kind of circulating around, but I think that initial cut to credits is extremely powerful as an ending. And yeah, I think the way the Sammy rejects his father is kind of the opposite to kind of Remick and where he's come from. When you were talking about the kind of the Christian lands, and I see people saying that Remick isn't a villain, which is crazy because he's like actively going out trying to suppress this kind of idea of culture. It's like you can live on forever, but you're like we're just gonna go around and do nothing, and you have kind of nothing to live for, and they would rather die than live without their kind of ideals and like culture, like I said. And I think it is really really brilliant. But yeah, those Irish jig scenes are so
It's so good.
hysterical, so brilliant. Yeah, and yeah, I love those so much.
Remic's character is really interesting because obviously he uses to get more people to turn into vampires and join his like hive mind. He like uses that the couple's prejudices against them, because obviously you see the KKK robe in there, and
Mm,
it's like, oh, I've just been attacked by some Native Americans. That seems really good, by the way. There's like vultures circling around the house, and you see him just out of frame, like drop onto the ground, like suggesting he'd been flying away. That's like a really cool
mm,
shot. And then yeah, he's like, I've been attacked by Native Americans, and as soon as he sees that robe, he knows they'll let him in as like a white guy. And then
mm,
obviously they're not listening to the Native Americans who are warning them. I find it really funny that they just bounce. By the way, they're not messing with this vampire when the sun goes down. And then that's how he infects them. And then obviously he's like aware that as a white man that it's going to be difficult to intercept. Basically, a family is what they call themselves at the bar. I don't know. There's really interesting ways they play with like racial dynamics in this, but it also does feel like a celebration of race as well, with like the spirit dancing and things like that.
Yeah, that's like people saying he's not a villain. I mean, it doesn't have to
Yeah, it
be
definitely is.
as a
Yeah.
villain or not a villain, but like obviously he's a villain, but like it's not black or white. It's like he's got a good point behind it. Like almost like why would you stay in this like culture where you're bottom of the food chain and like hated by the Catholic community? Like he's almost a good point of like enticing them to come and be a vampire because they can be free and kind of live their own way. Um, that's what like is so good about him, like trying to entice them outside the barn. Um, and again, linking to the kind of like Irish links to them, I think it all really works really well. The vampire stuff is like interesting again because he does embrace all the tropes of the vampire, like the stakes for the heart, the garlic, the having to be invited inside. You don't really see it that much, but you can see that they fly for like a moment when Haley Steinfeld dies. Like there's like a nice little like I wouldn't call that a jump scare, I guess, but it's like the beginning of a jump scare before he cuts away.
It's actually
Um,
funny with the jump scares. They do it like more in the beginning when the vampires aren't
Mm.
there yet. They do it with a snake, and there's definitely like a noise at the beginning because I remember jumping at something right at the start of the film, and then yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
yeah
once
it's like the
when
opening.
when
It is like there's really quick cuts,
yeah,
loud cuts between when Sammy walks in. It's
mm,
like a split second shot of like the final act, things that happen there.
yeah, because when they
yeah
do the
the
snake
editing's
thing,
really
like
good.
yeah, it's really good. When they do the snake thing, I'm like, okay, that was cheap. I really hope this isn't like a jump scare film because I'm going to be disappointed. But no, it
Mm.
goes more for like the From Dusk Till Dawn thing. Some people saying it's not horror, which is stupid. It is a horror film just because it's not like a haunted house simulator. It is.
I
It's
It's
mean
a
that
horror
perfect
film,
happens.
action.
Yeah, it
but I
happens to
don't
any
think it
movie
ever
that's
intends to be a
elevated.
vampire film. I think Kugler is actively um, trying to make it be many things rather than a horror film with such like an inert and direct vision as like this film is just about one thing and that's all we're going to focus on and we're going to block out everything else. Like this is kind of uh, a pushback against those films that are so singular in their vision, in a sense, which is I can see why people say that, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, if you were to like ask me one genre to describe it, though, it would be horror. I don't know. It's not. It's not going to just be a horror film, but it's like an
Mhm.
horror action, I guess. And the drama, obviously, the getting like the band together as a figure of speech at the beginning. You really care about every character. I know you mentioned that previously, but so whenever someone does get like bit or turned or dies, it's like really horrible. And I do like that they went for all the tropes with the garlic and things like that. You never really
Mm.
see that in media. The only thing they were missing is turning into bats, but that is a bit ridiculous. I'll let them off for that.
Yeah, I hate when films like they want to use the vampire kind of structure as like an outline for their movies, but they don't want to fully embrace like the campy like B movie side of it. And I think at points he really did and kind of embrace that side of it when it finally does become a vampire movie. Um, maybe comparing it to something like Dusk Till Dawn, I think like maybe like the scene where like they barge into the barn is maybe not like the gore and the kills aren't maybe like the highlight of the movie, like something from Dusk Till Dawn does. That kind of builds up to the point where like the like really over the top, like campy practical effects, like the practical effects in Dusk Till Dawn are like some of the best ever. Like Robert Kurtzman and Greg Nicotero, like they done like George Romero's zombie movies, Evil Dead, or the Evil Dead franchise, like Walking Dead, like the practical effects in that are like the best ever. This one has amazing practical effects, like the guitar through Jack O'Connell's head at the end is.
Oh
I
yeah.
think he said that like, that was actually for real. It's not like visual effects. Um, that was all really great, but I don't think it's like the meat of like that second half. Like I think he builds even more on the themes that he was doing inside the first half, which is just like kind of period piece drama, which is of course where like the Dust Till Dawn like references come because it is that, and then there's just a dividing point where it switches to a different like kind of tone and everything. I think I love that like start of it where there's just like this Seven Samurai esque recruitment of every person that you're saying. You do get like a good idea of what every character's like, and you kind of get attached to them before we get to the point where they're just stuck in this. I guess the thing, it's very John Carpenter esque. Like he did a couple of movies where they're just like locked in, and there's like an evil outside. Um, you really get attached to kind of the characters before you even get to that point. And I think the first half is just done so well. Like it could have just been a drama, and this would have ended up being like a great film. But I think the fact that it turns into this like over the top horror eventually is just like I love it so much. Um, and it does dedicate a good chunk of the film in the first half before you get to that, but it doesn't feel like something like I was thinking of Abigail that came out last year. I think you've seen that.
I've not
Another
seen that.
vampire film.
Is that
Have you
that
not? Well, it's been
little girl one, or is that
it's
something
Mm,
else? Okay.
yeah, it's the little ghetto one. It's what they called again. They done Scream and they done Ready or Not.
radio
I don't know.
silence.
Yeah, Radio Silence. It was their film, but that film takes 40 minutes before you get to the vampire film. And it very much feels like right. Let's just get to the vampire stuff. I want to see the action. But this one is you almost forget that it's even a vampire movie, and you're just gonna fully into the drama and the period piece, like almost gangster film that he sets up before this. Um, yeah, it's also done so well. Um, I love the first half and top of the second half.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like you said, yeah, the Abigail bit is like it's a kind of a load of nothing before that, and like, what's the point of that setup if you're explaining it in the trailer? Like, I know
Mm,
most of us knew that this was a vampire flick going into it, so there's kind of that decent size of first act setup, but I think it does such a good job at painting this kind of American landscape. Obviously, the brothers are gangsters from coming from Chicago, where they've just been this kind of real North versus South divide that I think this film builds on. This kind of urban and rural landscapes. Where kind of money is a lot easier, and there's alcohol. Obviously, the whole film is set in the prohibition area where alcohol was illegal, and which kind of ties into the blues a bit. But yeah, there's this kind of slight out of place feeling for our kind of lead twins who are kind of, well, they're coming back home expecting to kind of get away from things, but it really chases them, really comes with them. And there's a lot of differences, kind of rejections, people rejecting their money, calling it cursed. And yeah, we get a sense of this divide without ever even seeing the North for itself. Um, and partly because I think Kugler does such a good job with the extreme horizontal aspect ratio of the 270 with these kind of cotton field landscapes, endless, that kind of join all our places, and it really accentuates the just the widespread nature of it. And it works brilliantly. And I think the first time I kind of really noticed, like, oh yeah, they're really pushing this aspect ratio difference to like full intentions, is that you get like a really quick, there's a thing in the first act, like for like 2-3 seconds, it cuts to a sky and it's like in full 143, and then it'll just quickly cut back to the 270 era. And like from that moment on, I'm like, yeah, they're actually using this for something intentional, rather than just for size and scale. And there's a lot of this idea of freedom. I think there's a line when they're at the truck in the beginning. It's like he's like, look at the sky. It's a good day to be free. And there's a real focus on horizons and sunrise, which plays perfectly into the vampire narrative, and how daytime is this their freedom. And yeah, and when they're kind of at one with this music scene. But yeah, and it kind of, it saves a lot of its 70mm usage for this kind of really cathartic final 15 minutes, which is kind of this full artistic explosion in line with our characters' emotions, who are kind of fully set free, and we just got one of the twins just gunning down loads of KKK members, and it is so good. It's so good. And yeah, I felt in myself watching that. yeah, that I was just so expansive and just really felt like Kugler was letting loose, and I really felt that was so well linked in with the characters and their kind of concluding arcs. Obviously, film was shot by Autumn Gerald Arkapour, who's the first ever female cinematographer to shoot on IMAX 70mm for a feature-length film, which is kind of crazy to think about. Um, yeah, incredible looking film. I love how underexposed loads of the shots are. There's so much void and shadow, and it really kind of heightens that. And yeah, it's everywhere, and it looks really really nice. Um, I do have one minor thing, which with IMAX 70mm, its lenses have a really limited level of focus, and there's a level of shallow focus in a lot of those shots. I'm like,
In
I do really
the
want,
car scenes, I noticed that a lot.
yeah, I'm like,
I felt like he was maybe going for isolation though when they were
he
kind of.
was, but like obviously with the IMAX 70mm, like it obviously it limits its level of focus, that specific type of lens, so you actually can't necessarily do anything about it. But I still think it is a ton. It's like it's not to a degree where I'm like this is really detrimental to its cinematography. I do think it's ugly, but it's not kind of, yeah, it's not as bad as some other films and some other filmmakers who use it fully intentionally, like Villeneuve in Dune 2 specifically. And yeah, it is. Every time I'm like, I just want to see some more of the background. And I know obviously you can't help it with the lens, but I'm still like, it's still kind of ugly at times. But yeah, it's not. It's not in this film, it's not kind of massively overly used to a point where I'm getting actively annoyed by it, but it's just a little thing that is I just don't like about those lenses specifically. But yeah,
Yeah,
apart from that, it is literally horizontal versus vertical, and yeah, those changes are staggering.
I was just looking at the crew that he's like chosen because obviously I knew Ludwig was doing the score, and it might get a nom. It's probably that good. I love the music in this. It's not quite Oppenheimer level, but it's incredible. Yes, so the editor was like all of Coogler's projects and some studio films. He also actually worked on Abigail as well, so that's a funny coincidence. He edited Abigail.
interesting.
Com- uh, Choreography, same again. It was Coogler, and then like Pitch Perfect. I guess the most like cinema of his films was Collateral, and then yeah, just a lot of the cinematography as well. Autumn's done Palo Alto, which is good, but she's not done like any really renowned films for cinematography. So it feels like Coogler's took a risk with who he's worked with, but he clearly trusts them because they've all worked on Black Panther. I think is the link. Um, so along with him, they might really all elevate the careers from this. Obviously, they're going to make more money from studio films, but it's really good to see a franchise director divert from the norm and then get rewarded for it. And I think we touched on it slightly, but the Tarantino ass KKK mowing down ending, I wasn't expecting that to be honest, but I really enjoyed it. And some people were joking, saying like, where are all these action shots in the trailer? They're just not in the film, and then oh, it all takes place in that like 3 minute scene. I don't know what you guys thought of that. It was interesting. That's when it felt like he fully leaned into the Rodriguez like Tarantino vibe.
I thought the exact same thing. It looked exactly like when Hitler gets.
Yeah,
I won't spoil that in case anybody's not seen it, but it really reminded me of that scene. And it just felt like the movie could have ended when like Preacher Boy, like when it loops back to the start of the film, and it's like, wow, we've got like another what, like 15 minutes to go here. Like I didn't expect more action after that like finale moment. Yeah, I really loved it. It did really feel like Tarantino.
they could have, like you said, not even included like the KKK like owner of the bar that they bought the place from. Like that's not absolutely integral to the plot. Obviously, it's all about like race divide and things like that and assimilation. But I don't know. It's quite. I'm not fully sure why that's included at the end, but I did enjoy it. I think it might just be a simple moment of like cathartic. You know, they've been up against it against these vampires who have like taken their own from them, and like effectively destroying the
Yeah.
culture by killing black people. But yeah, I
It's
don't
also
know.
mentioned by Jack O'Connell that that's what they were just gonna do. Like they were just gonna turn up and
Yeah,
kill them, so they can't really
exactly.
not. Yeah. Um, it's also just a really cool moment as well. You can't not turn down doing
Yeah, you
that.
can't.
It's just a cool scene.
I know. I hope more directors like Tarantino and Coogler just for like have an excuse to mow down like racists because it is very good.
Yeah. That also has like maybe my favorite moment in the movie. And it's when after Stack gets shot, and he starts to get visions of his child, and I think that is like such an emotional moment in the movie that I think Coogler is one of the best at, honestly, including these really like emotional moments that really get you. Like Creed has the moment when he gets knocked down and he has like the as like almost like montage of like his family and stuff, and he gets up. Black Panther has like the scene when I don't even remember what it's called, but you know the stuff they take to become like the Black Panther, and they go into like
Oh
the
yeah.
afterlife, like that.
Hmm.
Like he has all these moments in his films where I think he does really these like almost surreal moments that are really kind of the heart of the film. And that moment where he like holds his baby is just it's so good and such a good like conclusion to that kind of subplot that they had between him and his what's her name,
Is it Annie?
Um,
Annie. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
him and Annie
um,
have a baby they died that he visits the grave early on in the film. Yeah, I think I just really love the way that like wraps up towards the end.
yeah. That really
mm,
reminded me of the end of Gladiator. You know, with, like the really harsh lighting
Mm.
and stuff to like express the afterlife. That yeah, that was a tearjerker moment.
yeah. In other news, we old movie blood is back. You get this like it's not the really realistic blood. It's like it's kind of bright crimson, in a way. And it's so nice to see. Honestly, like I hate realistic movie blood. Like old movie blood is so much better.
I heard
Yeah,
Michael B. Jordan complained to them about how annoying it was for that blood to be on them. So
I was reading actually, like a practical effects maker said like any kind of blood is just horrible because they mix it with like syrup. So if you can imagine the film, they're probably filming when in the very hot weather there with like no cover. So yeah, you probably reek of sugar, which probably attracts bugs, and then obviously just covered head to toe. So it must be an absolute nightmare for actors to work in it. But I did think the blood was good, and the like injury detail was really good as well. I think Ryan said it was practical, almost of it was. I know Cornbread as well gets like his
Mm.
cheek blown off, and like that looks really good. You can tell that's practical. And the sex scene, which turns into like, oh, that drool scene, by the way, is is that's some like good old cinema that I don't know. You don't see much like that anymore. Yeah, the injury detail is really good in this.
Mm. Um, and what was well, obviously, the scene that everyone's talking about, obviously, scene in the middle. This the musical spirit scene in the Wanna is incredible, and I think it's Ryan really kind of showing like the moment that he's um like I said earlier, show this film was just a whole artistic rejuvenation of his abilities, and I think this is really the scene that kind of kicks it into motion. Real kind of artistic cry of joy, I called it in my review, and extremely transcendent. Um, and yeah, it's heartfelt, and the score is incredible. Ludwig. Um, but I guess aside from that, what is everyone's favorite scenes? Because for me, um, that for the first scene that we see Jack O'Connell, we get that gorgeous shot of him and the dissolve with the moon over his
Oh, it's
face.
so
And
good.
for the
The
first time, you
dissolves in this
hear
movie
like
are so
you
good.
hear the Ludwig electric guitar kick in, and I remember the first time I was just going crazy. And it's like that's like the pivotal moment where you hear Ludwig's um, score changing. Obviously, I think one of the standouts in this film is the kind of move from strings to electric and this in real time evolution of the blues that happened. And Ludwig really incorporates that as we kind of move into the second half of this film. And that moment that I need if when it hits digital, that dissolve, and then like the shot right after is like a stunning shot of like this telegraph pole on this it just blue backdrop, and the sky looks
Mm.
incredible. And
It looks like a
that's another
digital
thing.
sky in that scene. At least when
It's
I was
that's the
thinking it
other thing I
was.
was going to say is like old movie skies, like not just old movie skies, but there's such a rejection for an appreciation for a good sky and clouds in a lot of mainstream blockbuster cinema, and this has some absolutely stunning skies and clouds, and yeah, it's gorgeous. But yeah, that moment when we that dissolve and the score kicks in is glorious. But um, aside from that moment for me, the that kind of final confrontation when I was talking about Jack O'Connell, Remick, and Sammy, their kind of experiences, that kind of the forced baptism sequence where he's like shoving him underwater is um, so perfectly done in the way their kind of characters and commitments to religion and kind of conservative religion kind of come together and clash. I think that is such a brilliant moment, him kind of forcefully putting him under the water frequently. And yeah, that just the score over that, Bury the Guitar is probably my favorite track. But yeah, what was everyone's favorite moments?
You basically mentioned them all. I think it's the whole Remick first appearance sequence from when he's running from the Native Americans to when you get the dissolve. I think that Irish dance scene outside is really good because they keep talking about how it's like a hive mind with Remick, and then the choreography really like shows that he's in the middle, like with all the attention on him from the other vampires, and the choreography for that is really it does a good job of like demonstrating that he's like the hive leader, and that it's his own like selfishness that's infested everyone. Um, and then yeah, obviously the spirit dance scene is amazing. The confrontation at the end is really good, and then I think there's for like comedy, it's quite good when the trio of vampires are like singing together, trying to convince them to get into the bar. That's a good scene as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Irish dance like jig that they do as well. It's so good. The Rocky Road to Dublin song has been on repeat. I can't get that out of my head. I think it's so funny the way like Omar Benson Miller and like Haley Steinfeld are like on and Smoke as well. I think is in that like kind of circle that they're doing around them. I've seen some people calling him Michael A. Jordan, like the other twin, which are quite funny. um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
brilliant.
especially Mar Benson Miller, I love. I think it's so funny the way they're dancing around Jack O'Connell like during that scene. Ludwig's score, I think. I don't know. There's so many tracks in here that are like amazing. I think particularly like the surreal like montage song is so good during that also won her, and it's just the way it incorporates like there's really no rows to like Ludwig's score in this moment. You have like the guy that's from the future. He looks like a like 2079 like ridiculously like futuristic guy that shows up. There's like a DJ in the back. There's people twerking in the corner. There's some Chinese people that show up because it like I think that's such a cool like element of it. It kind of like depends on who's in the room. And the Chinese family there like causes them to also show up and dance. I would have loved to seen if there was like if Jack O'Connell had like somehow made him like perform his music and there would been like some Irish thing. I think that could have been cool. The initial when they go to the train station and they meet Delroy Lindo and he's like performing the blues like at this train station. But I think he's like just performing for money. I love that scene. When they initially go to get Omar Benson Miller um in the fields, and you just see how far those fields go. It's like ridiculous. As well, the fact that they got to shoot that in 65 is just it looks like CGI. Like it goes that far. Like you can't believe that like the fields are just like in that intact like that well and just go infinitely. It looks like it's ridiculous. Yeah, prob again, probably my favorite though is the scene that I mentioned where he gets to reconnect with Annie and his child. I think that's maybe the best moment for me.
Yeah, do you think I was thinking about this while we were talking, do you think if you didn't see any trailers or anything like that, obviously they're unavoidable because they've been in cinemas, but they really focus on like African folklore about the music right at the beginning, and I think if you hadn't seen any of the trailers, that'd be a really good subversion. Because Annie even comments when they first encounter him, these aren't, I can't remember what you call them, what the spirits are called. These
Mm.
aren't
Hmm.
these aren't these things, the vampires, and that reminded me of From Dusk Till Dawn as well. Because obviously in that film, the first half is just a Tarantino crime film, or like a drama. So that's another thing. I think it's like it definitely feels like a '90s film directed by like a modern director in how it's structured,
Mm.
including that like ending scene, like you said, which reminded me of Gladiator, where they reconnect. The family reconnects at the very end, and then the end credit scene made me laugh. The fashion choice they made for Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld. It's like, yeah, this is clearly the decade this is set in. It's just like ridiculous.
But that's what is so good about it, like all the things you mentioned, like oh he's drawn from this and drawn from this, but he never really falls into this kind of trap of being derivative. He always finds a way to like I've said before, just rejuvenate it and turn it into something, a collection of something that feels so um, feels fresh in a way that isn't just oh like we're gonna completely rip you off. But yeah, and there's some of the parts of everything he takes from just is a staggering culmination, really.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the thesis of the movie. Really, it would almost be wrong if he wasn't pulling from other stuff because that's what it is.
Mm,
It's like when Sammy Boy like performs and goes to that greatness, he's pulling from the past and the future, and it like obviously film's always pulling from itself as an art form, but I think the fact that he's pulling from so much from each genre that he's working in does work well towards what he's also trying to say in the themes. So yeah, it all works really well, I think. All right, we're gonna do a draft of our favorite vampire movies in celebration of Ryan Coogler's vampire movie.
okay, Ryan, do you want to do like a wheel thing?
All right, so that's just who's to go first.
Please be me. Damn it. No, not Ryan.
No, it's Daniel.
Please be me next.
Daniel gets first pick in the draft.
Oh, go on.
Let's go.
That's not good.
I'll take
That's not
a pick
good.
and
Yeah, you got no wheel pick. Oh,
okay.
Daniel.
Daniel, what is your first pick?
my first pick. I need to be really careful here because these guys have seen like 5 times more vampire films than me. But I'm just gonna pick my favorite, but not Sinners. Even that is my favorite. I'll go The Addiction. Um, I knew Oscar would want that by Abel Ferrara. That is, I said earlier, I love modern takes on vampire films. That is like insanely good one for like
It's so
addiction
good.
and like drug addiction is what it's like symbolizing. Just like the desire for blood in a modern setting. It's so good. And
That's such a good film.
it's only 80 minutes, and you get to see Christopher Walken like riffing. It's so good.
Yeah, well, Ferrara is
Yeah.
an incredible director, but I am, of course, going to take the greatest vampire film of all time, Bram Stoker's Dracula, as my first pick.
Damn it.
I
Yeah,
just
that was
wanted
gonna
the
happen.
second, just so I could take that from Ryan.
Yeah. very clearly the best vampire
I'm
movie
gonna
of all
really
time.
troll both of you then, but I thought, you know what, I'll leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna avoid picking ones you've seen, but you've first round you've picked one that I've somehow not seen from vampire movies. First round or for my first pick, I don't have like the masterpiece of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I'm gonna go The Lost Boys because I think Schumacher delivered a really campy 80s fun vampire movie from that. Like this kind of falls into the kind of like lead vampire and like clan, the elements that they've done from that inside this. Has a lot of great fun moments with the kind of vampire tropes and stuff like that. Schumacher's a great director. I think this is one of the greatest vampire movies ever made.
You get another pick.
Oh, so I did. I'll go the original Nosferatu, Murnau's version. Got to go for the vampire movie.
Yeah, 1922. Nice. Ooh, okay. I gotta go for the next best one for me, which is Park Chan-wook's Thirst. One of the more underrated films in his filmography, I think. Another Daniel, you'll like his contemporary, and I would highly recommend it. It's about this priest, and it is quite wild and romantic in a sense. But yeah, a fantastic take on the genre. Really, really great film.
Okay, since we've been talking about it, I might as well do it now. I'll take the duo of From Dusk Till Dawn and Sinners. I think Sinners is going to be considered in like 10 years' time like a modern masterpiece of vampire films, and From Dusk Till Dawn is like its clear influence, and it is an upgrade from Dusk Till Dawn. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't watch that, because you know you get some really good stuff in From Dusk Till Dawn as well. Some of the violence at the end is really cathartic to watch. So yeah, I'll take those two together.
Um, Nice. And I think I'm going to spoil Ryan's party slightly by taking this because I want to take it before
Oh,
him. But I'm going to take Tobe Hooper's Life Force as my third pick.
oh,
Um,
I wasn't gonna pick that. I don't know if I
for
consider that vampires because they're like it's called space vampires is another alternative
Space
title, but I think
Vampires.
it's kind of zombies. It's weird. It's a weird blend.
Its alternate title is
I'll
Space
let you have it.
Vampires.
Yeah.
How am I not allowed that? Again, another really underrated film. Tohu is a really fascinating director, and yeah, is sci-fi and sci-fi vampires. It's crazy. But yeah, Life Force, really fantastic film. When was it? 85. Brilliant, brilliant practical effects.
Yeah, it's such a really weird film. Um, I'm going to take Let the Right One In, from Thomas Alfredson, which is a
Nice.
what country is again this is from? It's a Swedish film, coming of age, very cool modern twist on the vampire kind of tale, kind of diving into its like predatory aspects of it, kind of I guess trying similar to what Sinners is doing, where they're trying to like lure you in with the good sides of being a vampire, the eternal side of it, kind of escaping the horrible parts of society that you're dealing with, kind of dealing with that in the movie. Just a great modern vampire film. Also as a remake, um, what's it called? Let Me In, which is Matt Reeves' film from 2010. I think it's one of the great modern like horror remakes because I think I seen this first, so I have a lot of love for it. Because it can introduce me to the story. I don't know if you would if you've watched the Swedish version first, but I think this is also kind of like an equally great version of it. As
Nice.
my other pick, I've got another pick, don't I?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for Ken Russell's Lair of the White Worm, which is this really like British campy like vampire movie. It's so weird. If you've seen any Ken Russell movie, you kind of would expect what's going to come here. Just yeah, it's just really weird with these films. Hugh Grant and is in it, Peter Capaldi, some great British actors in here. Just a really fun movie that I recommend. A really underseen movie from him.
Mm. Um, yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I think for my next one, um, I'm going to go for Claire Denis' Trouble Every Day, which is a very, very unconventional vampire film. And I love Claire Denis as a director. And it's another fairly underseen film that I watched not too long ago. And yeah,
I don't know
it's
about this.
really just throws all the vampire tropes out the window. And yeah, and I would recommend it. It's really, really interesting, but like I said, very unconventional for the genre. But yeah, really interesting watch. Trouble Every Day from 2001.
Right, so I get my last picks then.
Yep.
Taika Waititi has a really bad reputation now, but What We Do in the Shadows is like a really good film and it's really funny. This was like very close to when he became a shocking director, but no, this used to be one of my favorite films ever when I saw it when I was like 11. But I do still really like it. It plays with all the vampire tropes and turns it into comedy. What they do with their version of Nosferatu is really funny in the beginning as well. So yeah, you don't get tons of comedy vampire films, but that's definitely worth watching. And then my last pick, I'm stuck between two, but since I was thinking modern Nosferatu, but since you took original Nosferatu, I won't. I'll go for like pure action and just pick Blade because that is like a
Nice.
really stylish. Back when like CBMs were stylish, we're never gonna get a sequel, unfortunately. But I don't know. Daywalkers are cool. Blade is really cool. The we were talking about Fake Blood earlier. I bet those extras love that opening scene. Um, that is when the film peaks, I think. Unfortunately, but
It's a great film overall,
is a
but
great
that
film
opening scene is
overall.
great.
The ice skate
Great
uphill
score.
scene is like right at the peak.
I love that film. Really, really great. And for my last pick, I'm going to go for a film that neither of you have seen as well. But Carl Theodor Dreyer's Vampire from 1932. So going for another early vampire film. Gorgeous black and white photography. Obviously, kind of we're going back to the 30s, so this is another kind of really early important vampire flick that doesn't get brought up enough in the importance of the genre, and especially in kind of this the German expressionism movement. I know is kind of more pioneered in the early 20s with the likes of Cabinet Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, but they were really, really leading the way in these kind of vampire horror flicks in the early doors. But yeah, Vampire, really, really fantastic film. Would recommend. Only like 73 minutes long. Wonderful film.
Interesting. Yeah, I need to check that out. Um, my I'm gonna go from one of my second last pick is from Fright Night, by Tom Holland, the director, not the actor. Um, which I think is one of the staples in the genre. I think it's kind of like a riff on Rear Window, and it like that turns into like what if like the guy across the street was a vampire. And I think it's just a classic of the 80s that I think I really really love. And it also has a remake that I think is one of the great horror remakes as well. Apparently vampire remakes are kind of the go-to ones, but yeah, I love Fright Night. Um, I have
Putting
another
your
pick,
picks.
right?
No. You
Nah,
had
I don't
you,
know.
you had two
Yeah,
your first time round, you've had two the second
okay.
time round, and you've got one now.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Tony Scott's debut, The Hunger, which is an incredible looking film, and it has David
Ooh, I
Bowie
need to see that.
as a vampire.
There are some.
It's such a really good debut film.
Shout out Herzog's Nosferatu as well. Another great film. Blade, Del Toro's Blade 2 is good. I
Mm.
like that film. Trying to think what else. But yeah, some good picks on there.
And again, Vampires by John Carpenter maybe had influence on Sinners. It kind of delves
Mm.
into the leader of like the vampires and stuff as well. Great Cheryl Lee performance in that. And then James Woods kind of just like stinking it up in that movie. But yeah, another pretty decent John Carpenter movie, and it's vampires, so it's
Mhm.
cool. But yeah, that's our vampires draft. Let us know if we missed any like essential vampire canon in there. And let us know what you thought of Sinners, and we will be back next week for something else. Thanks.